Welcome into the Fantasy Football Show here on Sikkim 365 Radio alongside Steve May and distance learning here on the Sikkim 365 Fantasy Football Show, Grayson Grundhafer, who for some reason I can't see on the Zoom right now, but that's fine.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's here.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
There we go. He's there. There we go. I'm seeing Grayson now on two screens. We're, of course, brought to you by Richard Carr Motors and our good friends at Brotherwell Brewing. David Stone King is here tonight from Brotherwell Brewing. He's having a beer with us. He brought us over some beer, and he brought us a mini fridge, Steve, which is so desperately needed in the studio right now. And you know what? I think no better time like the present before we jump into our lineups and everything that's going on and our questions for this week and more injuries and all that, then why don't we taunt Grayson by the fact that he's not here. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to grab some of this Act of Faith.
Which one do I want this week?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually surprise y'all.
Very nice.
There we go.
Because I have one too.
There we go. So
very good.
All right, what do you got, Steve? Let's try to coordinate this.
All right. I think I'm going to do the Act of Faith as
all right,
well.
Good deal.
Yep.
So
nice and cold.
Yes.
Thank you.
Brought fresh over today. They killed this beer earlier today. It's fresh off the beer farm. All right.
And 1, 2, 3. There we go.
There we go.
Nicely done.
All right. Oh. That makes everything better, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
It'll make you forget about all the problems in the world, and we have a lot of them. But one of the problems in the world that we're dealing with if you're fantasy football is there are copious amounts of injuries, Steve. Copious amounts of injuries.
Yes, that's correct.
It's this most of the time I would say in fantasy football, your league is won. You win your league in the draft, and you win maybe like a couple of weeks to weeks in the waiver wire. I think that while that still remains to be true, that the draft is much more important than what you do in the waiver wire. This year, the waiver wire is going to be so important in week to week and how this thing flows.
Yeah, you have to pay attention. You have to work your waiver wire. Use strategy there, and so like in our league, there's two different ways to do the waiver wire. In some leagues, it's going to reset after each week based on the standings. Mm-hmm. So, if someone is losing, they're 0-2, 0-3 right now, they're going to be in first for the waiver position. I don't like doing it that way because whoever is in that spot, their team still maybe be loaded. They just had some rough weeks. So I like doing it where after the draft, whoever had the last pick has the first spot for the waiver wire to start the season. And then when you use a waiver spot, you go down to the bottom. So you really got to plan. Do I want to burn my number one spot, number two spot on the waiver wire to get whatever player you're going for? But regardless, getting back to your point, if you're not paying attention, I guarantee you have somebody injured on your roster. If you don't, you're extremely lucky at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at the roster for the Central Texas Fantasy Football League, of which we play in together. And next year we're going to have to get Grayson in a league with us so we all play against each other. But I'm looking at my starting lineup right now is completely – there's nobody with anything by them. But that's not necessarily been the case in that, Cam Akers was in my starting lineup. He's been hurt, and we talked about him a little bit last week. Grayson, here's what I like to do when I have the number one or number two pick on the waiver wire. I like to kind of wait until I have guys go on IR. That's it. I lost Cortland Sutton in this league. I lost him after the second week, and I had the second place on the waiver wire. So I just went all out trying to get what I wanted on the waiver wire, and that worked out for me. What is your strategy when it comes to waivers?
So I actually don't play in a single league that goes by priority of any kind on the waiver wire. You have to bid. So typically we get a budget of $100 or $200, and then you have to bid to get whoever you get. So I don't really go by any sort of priority or anything. You have to use your money on the guys that you really want. So typically I just strategize it by the need. So if I lose a running back, if I lose a wide receiver and I need to pay big money, then I will. So for instance, last week I paid big money to get Mike Davis. he gave me 22 fantasy points in PPR. So can't be too upset about that. But that's typically how I usually handle the waiver wire. And I know it's pretty common in a lot of leagues, but I also know that priority is also used a lot as well.
Yeah, and that's an even tougher way to do it. Yeah. I would certainly say. And look, I've had I will say having the second or third position on waivers, and when you have that IR situation, it's kind of a white knuckle situation on the thing, because I'll sit there and be like, oh God, I just hope that the guy who has first priority doesn't decide he wants this. And most of the time, what I'm wanting is Malcolm Brown or Alan Lazard or somebody like that. Right. And by the way, Alan Lazard, even though I did lose in our league this week, it was a Pat Mahomes type situation. I felt good, except for Mark, my opponent, had Patrick Mahomes. But Alan Lazard was a guy I picked up on. I literally used my first waiver claim on him right after the draft, because I was like, you know what? Devante Adams is going to pull a hamstring eventually, and I'm going to put him in there, and at least for 1 week, and he's going to play this week as well, just based on what my needs are. He's going to be in my lineup, and so that was worth it. Yeah, that was a worth it to burn my high. I think I had the first spot, and I was like, no, I'm just going to go get it. And I could have waited and played it out a little bit, but I decided, you know what, like, that's one I really think is going to work out, so I played it that way. Yeah, and that was a smart way to do it. I actually kind of misstepped after week 1, because I had Cam Akers in several of my leagues that I'm playing in, and obviously Malcolm Brown was the one that went off in week 1. So in a few of my leagues, I burned my waiver spot to get Malcolm Brown, and since I've gotten him, that hasn't panned out at all. So now, Henderson seems to be the running back to have now for the Rams, at least for the time being. But you mentioned injuries, and week before last was really just hell for injuries. But it seems like some of those players may be coming back this week. So maybe there's some sunshine on the horizon. Yeah, we'll see. And then there's guys, Damian Harris, who I claimed last week, and I'm not claimed. I think picked him up. I think I did it on Sunday afternoon, and dropped a guy who was out, and not coming back for a few weeks. We'll see what happens there. He's been activated, but that's in one of those situations. Normally, I would avoid the Rams and the Patriots, teams that have this running back du jour like the plague, but it's 2020. It's so hard to set a lineup every week. You might as well just grab running backs as you can, because there's only about 6 that are, every down back. Every play weeks. And it's actually funny because last week we joked about Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel, and Sony Michel gets 2 touchdowns. Yeah, and Sony Michel had some big long runs as well. So I don't know, Grayson, you can't win for losing with Patriots running backs.
No, you definitely can't, but I'm with you at Damian Williams. He's actually a sneaky good pickup if you got him a couple weeks ago, and that offense has been a lot better with Cam Newton. So, yeah, I don't really want any of them, but if I was going to take one, it would definitely be Damian Williams. Then James White should be back this week, so that's good news for people that drafted him in the 7th or 8th round. Yeah, and he's a PPR guy. If you're he's going to catch some passes. Yeah, and so especially with Cam Newton, that kind of offense, it's going to lend itself to maybe James White. But all right, Steve. So injuries that really kind of took by storm this week. I'm trying to think of some of the ones that really hurt. Chris Godwin. Horrible.
Yeah. He's going to be out probably for a couple weeks.
Tariq Cohen is out. Sterling Shepard's out. Yeah.
Dallas Goddard with the Eagles has a fractured toe. But it wasn't anything compared to the previous week. No. I can't think of a fantasy stud off the top of my head that went out this week, unless I'm just totally forgetting somebody.
Well, aside from Godwin, right?
Yeah, that's true. Godwin, yeah.
Yeah, and last week, how about Mike Evans with the wide receiver equivalent of being a fullback? 2 receptions, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and for Evans owners, that was great because you've been waiting for him to do that, but definitely the yardage and the total targets overall are not there yet for him.
No, and he's playing with it. He's not completely 100%. Godwin's not. So that probably means what, Grayson? Scotty Miller, is that a pickup? Would you do that in a deeper league, a Scotty Miller?
He's hurt as well. Yep. So they're all pretty banged up. Justin Watson seems to be the only healthy guy. I know they moved up Tyler Johnson, the rookie from Minnesota as well. So he's one to look at. But overall, guys, I think this just bodes really well for Mike Evans. He needs Chris Godwin kind of out of the picture to be reliable, in my opinion, besides touchdowns. And so I think he's due for a couple really good weeks while Chris Godwin is out.
All right, I'm going to go through some of the top receivers available, that would be pretty common in most leagues at this point in the year as we head into week 4. And we'll go through. We'll do this as running backs as well. All right, Hunter Renfrow, yeah or nay? I'll get each of your opinions. Steve?
No.
No? Grayson?
No.
Greg Ward?
No.
No.
Is that our league?
Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Justin Jefferson?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, Cole Beasley, T. Higgins, once you get past there, Kendrick Bourne, who
Higgins, I would, if you need a receiver, I would probably take a flyer on him because him and Burrow seem to have a connection right now.
Mm-hmm. So
I would too.
Yeah. Running backs, Adrian Peterson, now the starter in Detroit.
Yeah.
If you have to have one?
If you need a running back, yeah. Sure. Because, again, getting back to the point you just made a little bit ago, there's very few starting running backs that are at least going to be a one, first and second down back. Mm-hmm. Peterson is definitely that at this point. He's not a third down back.
Yeah. All right. So, Grayson, Adrian Peterson, how do you feel about that?
Oh, man, it's got to be the right game script. So if they're playing a really, really good team, I would not play him. But I agree with the fact that he's a first and second down running back. But if he doesn't score a touchdown, it's hard to see a lot of productivity out of him.
Yeah. All right. So last week we all decided that Gardner Minshew was a strong pickup.
Yes.
Now, I think 1 week notwithstanding that Minshew is long-term, like if you need a quarterback, or especially if you need a backup quarterback, I think that they're still going to get a lot of fantasy points. I think last week was kind of an anomaly in that going in, he looked like a great pickup, playing the worst defense in the league at the time, had given up a bunch of big plays to the receivers. All of a sudden, Thursday night, DJ Chark's not going to play, and his other receivers decided they weren't going to catch when they were wide open, and they look like the Jaguars again. So I'm going to stay strong on Gardner Minshew. Now, he's not my QB1 most of the time, but I do think that he's someone who, if you have an injury at quarterback or you have something like that, I like Gardner Minshew. Steve, your thoughts?
I like him too if you need quarterback help. And one thing we didn't mention last week, maybe it's, superstition, whatever, but I believe there's some data that shows those Thursday night games from a fantasy standpoint are horrible, no matter who's playing. And we probably should have mentioned that last week. The Thursday night game this week is Denver and the New York Jets.
Wait. You're saying that's bad?
I can't think of definitely nobody on the Jets that you would want to play this Thursday. And from, the Denver standpoint, maybe Gordon.
Yeah.
That might be it. Maybe Noah Fant, the tight end. You could probably play one of those two defenses and probably be okay because I'm predicting a very low-scoring game.
Well, Brett Rippon is starting for Denver.
So, but back to your point about Minshew, yes. If I needed quarterback help, I would not hesitate to get Minshew.
All right, so Nick Mullins steps in for Jimmy Garoppolo, which could probably be another couple weeks. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Nick Foles, all out there. Grayson, any quarterbacks that you would say, if, again, you should have your quarterback set. And quarterback's really the one position that has not, and I'm probably ripping somebody's ACL right now by saying this, that has not been the, oh my God, injuries outside of
Garoppolo.
Garoppolo is the only one. So Grayson, anybody quarterback-wise that you would say, look, I need this guy, and most people aren't starting Jimmy Garoppolo as their fantasy quarterback.
No, I think there's two names that I want to point out. One is a guy who is drafted highly, who I think is going to start breaking out soon. And then one is kind of a guy on the waiver wire. So on the waiver wire, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's got an amazing matchup this week against Seattle, who might also be without Jamal Adams this week. So keep an eye on that. If he's not playing, I mean, he could have a 30-point week, to be perfectly honest. Other guy that I'm targeting right now in a lot of my leagues is actually Matthew Stafford. So he gets Kenny Golladay back last week, played okay. He's got New Orleans this week, then a bye, and then he's got Jacksonville, Atlanta, Minnesota, Washington, and Carolina as 6 of his next 7 matchups. So keep an eye on Matthew Stafford if he's out there on anyone's waiver wire.
There you go. That's actually an excellent point. I have Golladay in 2 of my 3 leagues, and I mean, he was okay. I mean, he was a nice play. Helped me win one league. So, and he'll only get better.
He will. Now, I don't think this week is a very good matchup.
No.
He'll probably have Lattimore shadowing him pretty much the whole game when they play the Saints. But moving forward, definitely, and Stafford's a good
local play here in Waco. Like, that's what they want. They want us there drinking the beer that's made here in Waco, and they have an event this weekend, 4 to 9 on Saturday. Their Oktoberfest event. They're going to have all kind of events. Oktoberfest, it's Stein holding. So if you're a strong person can hold a Stein. Steve, I feel like you would do well at that.
Probably not, because I would be too tempted to drink it very quickly. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So, but there's all these. They're going to have Po' Boy Place, right? Dave is going to be there. If you've not had Po' Boy Place, and I'm going to show this to them so they buy advertising here.
Yep.
But Po' Boy Place is amazing. It is great.
They're at Union Hall.
They're at Union Hall. They have the hot chicken po' boy will change your life. Look, it's a scary world. We have to watch presidential debates that don't make any sense. We have to do all these things, and sometimes you want a cold beer and a hot chicken po' boy, and you can get that this weekend at Brotherwell, which is on East Bridge Street, right down from us. It's fantastic. I mean, if you drive down there at 4 o'clock, you're going to see some happenings. So go on by 4 to 9. You got plenty of time. It'll be right after our post game show, and I'll be really close to it. So I don't see any reason why I shouldn't go. I mean, I
might as well.
Might as well and see what's going on. It's been a long time since I've been able to socialize with other human beings.
Yep.
My dog and I have gotten to know each other really well. So, Grayson, it's too bad you're not going to be here this weekend because we could go. Again, you're missing out once again, Grayson, by living in Austin like a nerd.
Yeah, I know, but at least I get to drink Brotherwell in Austin, so
Which
I can't really complain, right?
Is that the Hidden Herd?
Oh, the Bridge Street Wit, which is actually one of my favorites.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. So we taunted him last week, and then he of course made the proper acquisition, so he could participate this week. All right, let's dive into some daily fantasy for this week, and really some kind of interesting matchups. And you mentioned Ryan Fitzpatrick before we went to break, Steve, about somebody that you could put in, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's not going to cost you an arm and a leg in daily fantasy.
No, right now DraftKings, he's going to be 5,400, which, based on what should happen, that's a great value. So you can start with Fitzpatrick in your DraftKings. I'm not sure what he is on FanDuel. Probably pretty similar, but you can start with him as your foundation, and then really again go to town on maybe some higher priced running backs and wide receivers.
Yeah, Grayson, do you have anybody you're looking out for this week in the daily fantasy that gives you a little, makes you, makes you happy?
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to that Jacksonville versus Cincinnati game. And we mentioned Gardner Minshew last week having a pretty bad performance. I think he's going to bounce back against Cincinnati. He's 5,900 right now on DraftKings. So I think that's a pretty good value for him. And if you look at any wide receivers in that game, so whether it's Tyler Boyd or if DJ Chark plays, I think he'd be a good play. James Robinson probably going to cost a little too much, but I kind of like that matchup as a possibility for a lot of points.
Yeah, and that's another thing you want to look at when you're doing your daily fantasy lineups. If you're in a cash game where, like, we have a little league where there's 10 of us.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned earlier, in that one you want to build a strong lineup. You want to have all the studs in that one. But if you're playing in one of the bigger ones where the prize money is more, the $1 million maker, the ones that are 100,000, 200,000. That one you want to be contrarian a little bit. So there's lots of websites that'll show you what the projected ownership of might be of a certain player. I'm going to plug one here. They're not a sponsor, but it's one that I go to, dfsarmy.com. They'll give you kind of what it's looking like for ownership. So for receivers right now, Devante Parker in that Miami-Seattle game. Devante Parker is only 5,700 for a receiver, and his projected ownership is only about 10%. So, again, if you match up him with Fitzpatrick, you do a stack there, you could be looking at some really good performance. Running backs, James Robinson, who Grayson just mentioned, he's coming in at 6,500, which is a little high. but his ownership right now is only projected to be about 2%. So he might be someone to plug into your lineup. And if he goes off, chances are other people you're competing against will not have him in their lineup, and that could really pay off for you.
Yeah. So I like sometimes when we do this, I like to just go on DraftKings and play with the lineup a little bit, just so I can see. I mean, Matthew Stafford, we mentioned him in the last segment. He's at 5,900 right now. If you like the matchup with the Saints defense, you maybe not for Kenny Golladay, Grayson, but for Matthew Stafford, 5,900, that's not bad for a quarterback.
No, definitely not. I mean, there's a lot of pretty good values at quarterback, and there always is. It's those other positions that are a little bit tougher, in my opinion, this week. But, Steve, do you have a number for Jonathan Taylor? Because he's a guy who I really want to highlight this week. The Chicago Bears gave up a huge touchdown run to Brian Hill and gave up Todd Gurley's best week yet. So I think they're susceptible to a lot of work for Jonathan Taylor. So he's a name that I would definitely target as far as another maybe spend the more money on guy.
Yeah, he's at 6,600 on DraftKings, which kind of puts him up kind of near the top. But his projected ownership is only about 8%. So that might be a good play. They're projecting him to get about 17 points. I think he'll get higher than that. So the player that's coming in at the highest projected ownership, surprisingly, is David Johnson from Houston. They're playing the Vikings. The Vikings' run defense hasn't been that great. Johnson is cheap. He's only 5,600, but his ownership is about 42%. So odds are, based on that information, a lot of people are going to have Johnson in the lineup. So, again, you might want to look for a contrarian play there. Another one, Myles Gaskin, going back to that Miami-Seattle game. Gaskin is definitely the running back now to have in Miami. Going back to waivers, if he's on waivers and you need running back help, you would pick him. But Gaskin's coming in at 5,000. So here's a starting running back at 5,000 for DraftKings. Probably going to be a shootout. And his ownership is at about 6%. So, Gaskin is another one. I would definitely have some shares of him in your daily fantasy lineups.
All right. So, by the way, you mentioned that Jets and Broncos game.
Yeah.
So you can play in what's called a showdown.
Yes.
On Thursday nights. So you can draft people in this Jets and Broncos game and try to beat people in a showdown, which I couldn't imagine that this would be very easy to do. You'd have to win this thing, you'd have to pick somebody that nobody picked that had 9 receptions and 2 touchdowns.
So, the showdowns are fun because it's a single game. You're picking players from just the 2 different teams. So for Thursday night, Rippin might be kind of a sneaky play to throw in there.
Yeah.
I would definitely get shares of Herndon, the tight end. I'm not sure who's going to be catching passes for the Jets other than him. And then for the Broncos, in the showdown, you can have both quarterbacks.
All right. Here's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
For just this show's benefit.
You're going to make a lineup?
We're going to make a lineup right here in the Showdown League. You guys are going to help me.
Let's go around the horn.
This all around the horn. Okay.
We each pick a player.
Okay. All right. So $50,000 salary cap in the Showdown League of what is the toilet bowl of all toilet bowl Thursday night games.
Who's going to be your captain?
Bronco.
You pick the captain.
The captain?
That's your first spot.
My first spot. I am going to pick.
You can also pick a defense for that captain spot.
Okay. I'm going to pick at $8,400. You know what I'm going to do that? I'm going to pick the Broncos defense.
Okay.
Because I think that they'll, create some turnovers.
Okay. Grayson?
All right. So next spot.
Okay. I'm going to go with.
We have, by the way, we have $41,600 remaining.
Yeah, you took a defense, so I can spend a little bit of money, I guess. So, I guess I'll be the big spender. I'm going to go with Noah Fant. I think they need someone to target. I think he's going to get a ton of targets, and so I think he's got to be the next pick up.
All right, $9,000. So we have.
He's high. Okay.
We have 5 spots left to draft and $32,600 left.
Okay.
Okay.
What's Herndon? Herndon's got to be high.
Let's see. Herndon is it 5,400?
Oh, give me Herndon.
Okay, good deal. There's a value pick. All right, you want to snake it?
Okay.
Okay.
Give me Rippin.
Okay, Brett Rippon, $10,200.
Really? Oh gosh.
Yeah, we are at $17,000 with 2 players left. Okay. So that leaves us some wiggle room. Grayson with $17,000 left. Who you got?
Yeah, how much is Jameson Crowder going for? I know he's kind of questionable right now.
He's questionable. He's at $8,200.
Oh, that's too much for a questionable guy. Okay, how about Braxton Berrios?
There you go.
Braxton Berrios. Look, I'll tell you, he was a Miami receiver. And there was a game Florida State should have beat them. And they could not cover that little turd. And I say that, I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. I don't know. But they could not cover him. Actually, you know what was frustrating was they would not put who's this? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. He's not playing this year for the Chargers.
Derwin James.
They would not put Derwin James on him. And you're like, what are you doing? You've got like the best defensive player in the country, and you're not putting on this guy who's 5'4". All right, so with $9,800 left, we might I'm like the highest value that we can afford right now would be Jameson Crowder at $8,200, but he's questionable.
Yeah.
Jerry Jeudy at $78,000. Frank Gore at $6,400. And I think I'm gonna go with Frank Gore.
I was about to say Gore is tempting.
Yeah, I think I just got to go with Frank Gore here, and that's going to be our lineup, which is the Broncos defense, Noah Fant, Chris Herndon. Is that his name?
Yep.
Herndon. Chris Herndon, Brett Rippon, Braxton Berrios, and Frank Gore. We are entering this with $3,400 left, Grayson. So wow. I think we're
was that a $3?
It was $5.
Okay.
$5. Right. So $5, and I could win. I think 100,000. So if I win it, I will give you guys your taste. Yeah, I don't know what the vig is on that.
It'll be based on percentage of points the players we picked earned.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, it's my $5.
I'll give you $5.
So it's my $5. Why don't we just split it 3 ways? Look, Grayson just got married. I'm sure he knows this, that all of a sudden there's costs in his life that he did not have before.
Yeah, there sure are.
There's just things that even when you go through all that stuff. Yeah. And again, 2 of us on this show are married, and I'll throw Armstrong into this because he's not. 2 of us are not. Okay. So I don't know what that means, but I get to buy whatever I want. So for me, that's all I'm saying. So daily fantasy, we did that. You know what? I hope some of our listeners go in and just jump in on this.
There you go.
Broncos, Jets, $5 on DraftKings should be a lot of fun. All right, Armstrong, you want to take a break here? I've got kind of a long question from one of our listeners when we come back. So it's a tough one. You're really going to like this, Grayson. We got a question from Hob Howell that we'll get to when we come back. This is the Fantasy Football Show brought to you by Richard Carr Motors and Brotherwell Brewing. There you go. That was delicious. That, by the way, is the Act of Faith, if you weren't watching us earlier.
Steve, 8.5 ABV, so be careful.
Well, I mean, I'm not even finished with this first one yet because I want to be able to give the people good advice. But we'll come back. We'll answer this question, and we'll do Stardom Situm here and to wrap it up, and we'll go through that. This is the Fantasy Football Show here on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. And this football season, you need to stop by on game day for curbside pickup or stop by their tent next to Sikkim 365 at Brazos Parking for your pregame refreshment. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Car has the trucks, man. They have the one for you. Crew cab, short or long bed, silver, black or blue. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, he has the truck for you. Carr has the trucks, man. He has the truck you need. If you want the best truck, you want a GMC. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Welcome back into the Fantasy Football Show here on Sikkim 365 Radio. Paul Kenley, the Steve May, Armstrong Sense produces, and our good friend David Stoneking really went above and beyond today. He brought us over a mini fridge, which we really needed in this building, we've got another fridge on the way, but I don't know when it's going to be here yet. So this is going to very much come in handy, and you can never really have too much for what we're going to do here.
That's true.
So, and again, our studio is great. It's fantastic. We're not, the way I like to tell people, Steve, is we're like the Death Star in Jedi, in that there's still a corner off the top, I guess corner's round, but a part off the top, but we can blow up a planet right now. We can blow up a planet right now. Grayson was here the other day doing the post-game show after Baylor's went over Kansas. And we're going to keep doing stuff like this. A reminder, Brotherwell's Oktoberfest event. I said Po' Boy Place is going to be there on Saturday. They're going to be there on Friday. So you have now two reasons to go out there. Po' Boy Place on Friday. And then on Saturday, we have they've got 310 barbecue, which is I have not actually had yet, but I know Armstrong's had it, and he was very happy with Armstrong. Your review of 310 barbecue.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah, see, it was fantastic. So again, and they're going to do kind of special beer menu type things. Yeah, so I've heard just being in this neighborhood, people have told me we were here on a Saturday doing work, and they're like, "Oh, you got to go down to 310." I'm like, "Well, I don't know if I'll have time," but now I'm really going to have it.
May I ask a beer question? Are there any fall seasonal things coming out?
Well, right now we have our best beer, which is our Oktoberfest style beer. Here, come over here. Put him on the headset.
Yeah. Yeah, repeat that. That's important information.
All right. So right now we have our Fest beer, and that is one of the three variations of an Oktoberfest style beer. The Germans have this traditional thing. They do it every year, and it's really kind of just this season. And it's always the last 2 weeks of September, bleeds into October, misleading name, but that is the Oktoberfest event, and it has its own beer style.
Awesome.
Yeah. So again, and so it depends. David, you said something to me interesting when you sent me the email when we first started doing the spots, that people come to your place all the time and they say, "I don't like beer, but I do like this." They're not beer people. So if you're watching us go, "Well, my husband's a beer, or my friend's a beer person, but I'm not." But you guys have so much variety that you can find something that people are probably going to like.
Yeah. One of our goals when we got into this was just making beers that we had never tried before. And like anything, once you start paying attention, you realize how much variety and how many options are out there. I think oftentimes what people think of as beer is really only one small sliver of what beer is.
Yes. Amen.
So what we try to do is expose other people to the idea that, man, there's a lot of different styles that emphasize a lot of different flavors that appeal to a lot of different people. So when people say, "Oh, I like beer," or "I don't," they're usually thinking of that one small sliver they're aware of. And so we love giving them something that they think, "Oh, I didn't know beer could taste like this. This is great."
Yeah. They had something from a $30 keg in college, and they've decided, that's most of the people who don't like beer to me, those are the ones well, when I was 19, I had an elite, I had one in, at a college, and okay.
And that's something I get a lot of joy out of. Two things. There's a long list, but two specific things. One, turning somebody on to a new band that maybe they haven't heard before. And then second, turning somebody on to some new beer. And like you just mentioned, the person that their beer world has been very limited, and they haven't tried all these different styles. So if you come to my house on a weekend, I'm going to be giving you multiple styles of beer, especially if you tell me, "Oh, I'm not a beer person." I'm going to find you a beer that you like.
Yeah.
And on multiple occasions, I've given them Brotherwell beer because there's plenty of styles, and out of the ones that are available, they find I didn't know this was beer. This is good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so fun whenever someone comes in a group and there's that one person who says, I don't like beer.
Yep.
And I always say, are you willing to try? If so, let me give you a couple of different things, ask 2 or 3 questions, and more often than not, they're walking out having now found a beer that they enjoy.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much. And again, really happy about the sponsorship. Happy about just having cool neighbors.
Yeah.
We
were all alone over here for a long time.
Yeah.
We're happy you're here.
Yeah. I worked at a place one time that my neighbor was Sonic. Not that I'm not Sonic, but that, it gets old fast.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you right now. So we're next to Sonic at a convenience store. That's what we had. So this is so much better in a cool neighborhood. And David, thank you so much for everything you guys do. And again, check that event out this weekend here, just right down here by our place. And it's going to be fun. All right. I've got a question from my good friend Hob Howell. Steve, you know Hobby Howell, right?
I do know Hobby Howell, yes.
Grayson, you know Hobby Howell, right? His barbecue pit master that he is and tailgate king.
Yeah, I've definitely seen him on the board. I'm not sure if I've met Hob in person.
So, Hob is Hobby's son. Hob sent this question. Hob's a great friend of mine. He's got a fantasy question. He's in a 12-team, half PPR contract dynasty league with a salary cap of $300 each year.
Jeez.
So this is hard. All right, Grayson, you with me?
Yep.
Okay.
I got you.
So a trade's been proposed to him. He gives up Chris Godwin, $34, and 1 year left on that. He gets David Johnson, who's $18 and $20 over the next 2 years, and Henry Ruggs, who's at $1, $2, and $3 and $4 over 4 years. His current salary cap is $299, so he only has $1 to spend for the rest of the season on free agents and all that. So the trade would free up cap space. Does he take the trade? Now, here's his current roster. Kyler Murray, Joe Mixon, Antonio Gibson, Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, Devante Parker, Brandon Cooks, and the Pats defense. His bench is Brady, Goodwin, Christian McCaffrey, and J.K. Dobbins. I say he does it.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Grayson, your thoughts on that?
It makes a lot of sense from a roster construction, the contract, but I'm having a hard time giving up Chris Godwin, guys. I really think that he's very good. Obviously, he's hurt right now, but I find that really tough. I know he's only got 1 year left of him, but I think he could really compete for a championship with Godwin on his roster. So I guess it's kind of that decision. Is he going to try to win now, or is he going to try to stash up some pieces? I like Ruggs, don't really like David Johnson. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think I'd stay with Godwin, honestly.
All right. So two votes to one. So Hob, I hope that helped you out. I hope that did. Look, he's got J.K. Dobbins for the next 4 years. He's got Christian McCaffrey for just the rest of this year. So you can see he was probably he probably had the first pick in that draft.
Yeah,
but $78 for this year. So that's a real tough. He's got a very solid roster. I would say his roster without making this trade and the no salary cap, when no room in the salary cap is fine. It's going to be good pretty much week to week. But that's a tough one. I say do it. Steve says do it. Grayson, you like Chris Godwin a lot. Right now, it might be the time to trade Chris Godwin just because he's hurt.
Well, and I like the fact that it's early in the season and he will be freeing up some salary cap too in the process.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go to Stardom, Situm for this week. Steve and Grayson will go through this. Steve, who you like?
Some receivers I like. I like any of the Packer receivers against the Falcons. I do think Devante Adams is coming back this week, but even if he doesn't, Lazard, the Falcons' defense, as we have seen, is awful.
Yes.
So Packer receivers and Dolphin receivers against the Seahawks, Preston Williams and Devante Parker, I think are must plays.
All right, Grayson, what do you got?
I mentioned Jonathan Taylor earlier. I think he's a smash play. I think the bonanza type game is Atlanta versus Green Bay. So anyone in that game, I'm fine with you playing. Aaron Jones, Todd Gurley, any of the receivers on both teams, probably Hayden Hurst, both quarterbacks. So really, really like that game. I would target that one. I think Atlanta will be playing from behind. And then another kind of, I guess you'd say, sneaky play, and it's in the same game as the Jonathan Taylor pick that I had. It's actually David Montgomery. I think that he's a sneaky play this week. Tariq Cohen is out. I think that David Montgomery is going to get more work in the passing game, and I think he's going to be in an okay game script where they're going to continue to hand him the ball. So those are two running backs that I also really like.
But I agree with Montgomery to a point. My only concern would be the Colts defense has been lights out this season so far.
It's been very good. And who knew?
Yeah.
I mean, I know they made the trade for DeForest Buckner and all that, but I didn't think that was going to change their whole scope of their team. All right, who do you not like this week, Steve?
I don't like. I already mentioned Galladay versus the Saints. I don't like any of the Washington receivers. The only one you'd be playing would be McLaurin against the Ravens. I don't like that.
I picked him up in daily fantasy because he's good value, and somebody's got to catch some passes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm also not really big on Thielen against the Texans right now. I'm actually predicting the Texans to win.
I don't see them going 0-4.
Yeah.
That's a big stretch for me.
So I think the Texans are going to win, and I don't know. I'm kind of down on Thielen right now.
Okay. Grayson, who don't you like this week?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Austin Eckler this week at Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay run defense has been really solid this year, so kind of trending down on him. I'm having a tough time choosing which Cleveland running back to go with this week, but I actually think this might be a Kareem Hunt week versus Dallas. I could see them getting down early, riding with Kareem Hunt, and therefore not a huge fan of Chubb this week, even though it could be a pretty high-scoring game. At wide receiver, not a huge fan of Julian Edelman this week at Kansas City. I don't know that that's going to be a great offensive day for the New England Patriots. I just think Kansas City's starting to play really well, and they're starting to get players back. So I would stay away from him as well.
I'll tell you, I just as someone who does a podcast about the Cowboys. By the way, Believe in the Cowboys podcast. Like and subscribe. Me and Orlando Scandrick. I think anybody who plays the Cowboys is a play. Their defense is so bad. Odell Beckham Jr., play him. Jarvis Landry, who's not been good this year, is going to have 9 catches. I mean, it's going to happen. Austin Hooper, probably going to have a big day. Nick Chubb, they're not good up the middle, so Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, you got either one of them. Put him. I mean, Nick Chubb to me is an every week play at this point, but I think he is. I think he's the number one back. But I think go ahead and play him. And look, I know that he's probably not going to start for you in most of your regular fantasy leagues, but in daily fantasy this week, Baker freaking Mayfield, because he's going to have a good game because the Cowboys defense is not getting good anytime soon.
Yeah, and Austin Hooper, you mentioned, has been kind of a disappointment. They signed him to a big deal. I do think this week. He could be a good play, but yeah, the Cowboy defense under Mike Nolan is not good. I was surprised when Nolan came in as the defense coordinator. I think his schemes are very well known because he's been in the league, forever. So yeah, that's as a Cowboy fan, that is a big concern.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. I get that, you bring in Mike Nolan because Mike McCarthy's comfortable with him, and he wanted veteran coaches on that staff. So so except for Kellen Moore, not a veteran coach, but keeps Kellen Moore, brings in Mike Nolan, brings in Bones Fossil. Those are his coordinators. But the talent he has in that defense, the money on that defense, DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, I'm saying DeMarcus Lawrence specifically here is a 4-3 defensive end. He plays with his hand on the ground.
Yep.
And so they're trying to turn him into a guy who can stand up. And
how many sacks does Lawrence have this year?
He has none.
Yeah.
He has none sacks.
Yep.
And Aldon Smith, who's a 3-4 linebacker, hasn't played in 5 years, is the only bright spot on the defense. He says 4 or 5.
Yep.
So, in fact, I believe he leads the league in sacks right now.
He does.
So, it just, I don't. And then, again, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what that choice was, and it remains to be seen. And I think the Cowboys thought they could contend this year, and I'm not saying that they're not going to eventually, but they've got a lot of things going on there. They've got a lot of injuries in the offensive line. I still think, though, because the Browns' defense isn't actually setting it on fire, but if you – and they're going to give up some points. The only thing I think that keeps the Browns from getting goose-egged on defense this week is that Myles Garrett's probably going to have 3 sacks.
Yeah.
So that might keep them, in the 4 to 5 point range on a defense. But
when this season's over, I think Dak is going to end up being probably a top 3 fantasy quarterback, which is awesome. But with that, I think the Cowboys could be an 8-8 team.
Yeah. Well, and guess what? They'll win the division by 4 games.
Yeah.
Because the division's really just that bad. All right. That's going to do it for us here. Any final thoughts this week, Steve, before we go?
No, just kind of going back to daily fantasy. I was talking to some people this week, and they were just hesitant to do it. And, on most of the sites, you can put in $5 initially, and you can play games literally for 10 cents or a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to spice up your Sundays a little bit, I would recommend just, giving it a try and just seeing how it goes.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll have a promo code and they'll give you $20, $25, maybe even $100. But that's just when they're really
and we're saying they're not sponsors or anything. We're just saying that as someone that likes fantasy sports and especially if your season long team isn't doing well, playing some daily fantasy could give you some excitement.
Yeah, it's fun. Grayson, final thoughts.
Yeah, I know people have probably heard this a million times, but if you're 0-3 or 1-2, don't give up.
Yep.
Just stay locked into your league, stay there and keep competing, keep checking out the waiver wire, because I'm telling you, with all the injuries, there's going to be a ton of teams that started terribly. They're going to win a lot of fantasy football leagues. So keep an eye on that. Just don't give up. Keep paying attention and stay locked in, because you can still win the league.
I keep hoping Mr. Miyagi shows up to do that thing on Michael Thomas's leg. That's what I really need.
I think he's going to play this week. So
yeah, well, maybe
it's happened.
Maybe it's happened. Maybe it's happened. Watch Cobra Kai, by the way. It's fantastic.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it yet. All right. Thanks again to David Stone King for stopping by, hanging out with us tonight, bringing all this fantastic beer that will now be housed in our fantastic fridge here.
Some of it's probably going home with me.
Yeah.
That's my pay.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. But at least we'll have some here.
There you go.
Yeah. As last week, I think I gave most of it away. So, but thank you so much to Brother O Brewing, Richard Carr Motors. Thank you to Armstrong Sims. This will be, if you're picking this up now, this will be available on demand on our YouTube page, on our Facebook Live page, all of that stuff. It'll also be on demand on the app, so you can listen to it. And thanks to Hob Hal for that very, very challenging question.
Good one.
He didn't just ask us do I play Odell Beckham Jr. or somebody else. And that was a really tough, really good question. So keep those coming. Again, you can tweet me at Paul Catalina, at Gray Grundhafer, and at
Centex Commish.
There we go. That's where you can find us. This is the Fantasy Football Show here on Sikkim 365 Radio.